Be grateful you have a job. Those 6 words didn't just land, they hit me. He didn't raise his voice, didn't even sharpen it. He said them while checking a notification on his phone, barely glancing up from the ceramic mug in his hand. He swiped his thumb across the screen, smiling at whatever he saw, while I stood there feeling like I was made of thin, fragile glass. I had only asked about the extra pay we'd been promised. Our team of 27 people had worked 14-hour days for 3 straight months. We missed everything. I missed the moment my niece first walked. I missed the last weekend my grandmother was lucid enough to recognize me. We missed rest. We missed living. We did all of this because he promised us a share of the profits from the big launch, $8,000 each. That money was my student loan escape. For others, it was rent, a car repair, or a breath of relief after years of drowning in bills. Yesterday, he sent an email saying that due to unforeseen market shifts, all performance payouts were delayed indefinitely. Today, I saw his social media post, a picture of a massive white beach house with the caption, "Hard work pays off. Baby-3 is finally mine." He bought a third vacation home the same week he told us the company was broke. "I am grateful," I said, my voice steady, too steady. I only wanted to understand the timeline. "Stop obsessing about timelines and start worrying about your output," he said, finally looking directly at me. "The investors come next month. If that presentation isn't perfect, nobody gets paid ever." I nodded, turned, and walked out. I didn't quit. I didn't scream. I went back to my workstation and began working, but not on the presentation he expected. Before I explain how I dismantled his entire life piece by piece, I want to thank you for spending your time with me today. If you've ever had a boss make you feel small just so they could feel big, go ahead and hit that like button. And maybe subscribe if you want to hear more stories about people getting exactly what they deserve. It really helps me share this truth. My name is Rennie. I am not a loud person. I don't like conflict. I don't raise my hand in meetings unless necessary. In a room full of people shouting to be heard, I'm usually the quiet one in the back, taking notes, watching how people move, listening to what they don't say. I am the senior data analyst. Most people think my job is boring. They assume I just stare at spreadsheets and make charts turn green. But that's not what I do. My entire role is finding patterns in numbers that others overlook. I search for the story hidden inside the math. A number is never just a number. It's a decision someone made. It's a footprint. Our CEO, Gail, forgot that. Gail was the type of man who believed he was the smartest person in any room simply because he was the loudest. He wore suits that cost more than my first car, and he had a smile he could switch on and off like a light. When he wanted something, he acted like your best friend. When he was finished with you, you disappeared. He thought I only made pretty charts for his slides, thought I was just furniture. He didn't realize that for 3 years I had memorized the heartbeat of this company. I knew how much we spent on coffee beans. I knew how much the electric bill spiked in July. I knew exactly how much revenue our big launch brought in. We didn't just hit our targets, we obliterated them. The company account should have been overflowing. So when Gail told me to be grateful, something inside me cracked. It wasn't a loud break. It was quiet, like the sound of a lock sliding open. I sat back down at my desk. The office buzzed around me, people typing, talking on phones, racing toward deadlines. My friend Benji sat across from me looking exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes like bruises. He was eating a vending machine sandwich because he was saving money for his daughter's braces. He had been counting on that $8,000. "What did he say?" Benji asked quietly. I looked at Benji, then at the sandwich. "He said to be grateful." Benji let out a small, bitter laugh. "Right. Grateful. I'm grateful I can't pay my heating bill next month." "Don't worry," I said. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't saying it just to be kind. "I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it." "How?" "Just do your work, Benji. Keep your head down. Let me manage the numbers." For the next 4 weeks, I became the ideal employee. I showed up early, stayed late, and brought Gail his exact coffee order: black, 2 sugars, no lid, every single morning. I smiled when he joked about trimming the fat during our weekly stand-up meetings. I watched him strut around the office, strolling through the aisles showing off photos of the new beach house kitchen to other executives. I could hear him bragging about the imported stone he used for the counters. "It took 3 months to ship this marble from Italy," he told the VP of sales, laughing. "Cost a fortune, but look at that vein. Worth every penny." I sat 3 rows away typing. I didn't look up, I just listened. Every night after the cleaners had left and the overhead lights dimmed into energy-saving mode, I truly went to work. I wasn't searching for stolen money. Gail was too smart to steal outright. He wouldn't just move cash from the company account to his personal bank. That leaves a trail even a rookie auditor could find. He wasn't stupid. He was arrogant, but not stupid. I was searching for where the profit disappeared. It's a simple equation. Revenue minus expenses equals profit. We had the revenue. If the profit wasn't there, and it wasn't in the bonus pool, and it wasn't in company savings, then the expenses had to be inflated. The money had to be slipping out disguised as business costs. I started with the obvious items: travel budgets, client dinners. But those were normal, high, but within policy. Then I opened the operational expenses folder. This is where companies bury things. It's the junk drawer of accounting. Thousands of lines of data, software subscriptions, consulting fees, server maintenance, office supplies. It's designed to be dull, to make your eyes glaze over so you stop looking. I didn't stop. I filtered everything by date. I searched for anything new that started in the last 90 days, the exact timeline of our big project. I spotted a new category: client acquisition and research. It sounded legitimate. Of course, you spend money to get clients in research markets, but the amounts were odd. Research expenses are normally small and frequent: $50 for a survey tool, $500 for a focus group. These numbers were massive, clean round numbers: $15,000 on September 2nd, $22,500 on September 15th, $40,000 on September 30th. And the vendor name was vague: CMR Solutions. I checked our internal vendor database. No contact name, no phone number, just a billing address in a generic office park in another state. Research, I whispered to myself in the empty office. It was a brilliant place to hide money. Research is hard to prove or disprove. You can dump thousands into market testing and nobody asks for a physical receipt because you can't hold a market test in your hand. You can claim you paid a consultant for strategy, and who can say the advice wasn't worth 50 grand? But I'm a pattern hunter, and I saw a pattern. I pulled the logs and matched the invoice dates to Gail's business trips. On September 2nd, the day the $15,000 invoice was paid, Gail wasn't in the office. His calendar said client meeting West Coast. I checked his company credit card statement, which I had access to for expense reporting. On September 2nd, he wasn't meeting a client. He rented a luxury convertible in Florida. He spent $400 at a seafood restaurant in Sarasota. Sarasota. I went back to the Instagram photo he had posted, the one of the White House. I zoomed in. The house was beautiful, modern, clean lines right on the sand, but I wasn't looking at the house. I was staring at the reflection in the glass door. In that reflection, you could see a street sign. It was blurry, reversed, tiny. Most people wouldn't notice it. I took a screenshot, opened it in my editing software, flipped the image, sharpened it, increased the contrast. Ocean Boulevard. Ocean Boulevard. I opened a map of Sarasota, Florida, typed in Ocean Boulevard. It ran right along the beach. Now I had a location and the suspicious payments to CMR Solutions, CMR, maybe Coastal Market Research or Coastal Management Realty. The pressure in my chest grew heavier by the day. I felt like I was holding a grenade with the pin pulled, keeping the lever down with my thumb. One slip, one wrong glance, and everything would explode. If Gail caught me digging, I'd be fired for unauthorized access before I could prove anything. He'd twist it. He'd say I was incompetent or unstable or a thief. I needed hard proof, the kind that doesn't require explanation. I needed to connect CMR Solutions directly to the house. I went to the Sarasota County Clerk's website. Public records are a beautiful thing. If you buy a house, the deed is public. The mortgage is public. I searched for Gail's name. Nothing. I searched for the company name. Nothing. Smart. He put it in a trust or an LLC to hide himself. So I searched by address. I scanned the map of Ocean Boulevard until I found the roofline that matched the photo, 4401. I pulled the deed for 4401 Ocean Boulevard. The owner was listed as Blue Horizon Trust. A wave of panic hit me for a moment. A trust is a dead end. You can't easily see who owns one. Had I hit a wall? Then I checked the mortgage documents recorded the same day. There, on the borrower's signature line, was a scrawl I had seen 1,000 times on expense approvals and birthday cards. Gail. And beneath his name, the borrower's title read, Manager, Blue Horizon Trust. I had him, but I needed to connect the money. I looked at the down payment listed on the closing statement. It was enormous, $216,000. I opened my client acquisition spreadsheet and highlighted all the payments sent to CMR Solutions in the last 3 months. I summed them. The total came to $216,000 exactly, down to the penny. He didn't even bother disguising it. He simply siphoned the exact amount he needed for the down payment out of the company, labeled it research, and wired it to a shell company that bought his house. He stole our bonuses. He stole the profit we had bled for, using it to purchase a beach house while telling us to be grateful we weren't unemployed. I leaned back in my chair. It was 11:30 p.m. on a Thursday. The office was silent, though my ears were ringing. I saved everything. I made copies. I backed them up to a thumb drive and to a personal cloud account. Then I waited. The investor meeting was 2 days away. This meeting was the biggest event of the year. The investors weren't just banks, they were the board of directors, the people who truly owned the company, the ones who could hire or fire the CEO. They were flying in from New York, London, and Tokyo. They were coming to hear about the big launch. They were coming to understand why the revenue was high, but the cash on hand was so low. Gail had a polished story prepared. I'd seen his slide deck. It was stuffed with buzzwords: strategic reinvestment, infrastructure hardening, long-term growth cycles. He was planning to tell them the profit had vanished because he had wisely reinvested it to strengthen the company. He was going to lie to their faces just as easily as he lied to us. The morning of the meeting, the office felt electric, but in a sick way. Everyone was tense. Gail was shouting orders at his assistant. "Where is the updated deck?" he barked, his voice echoing down the hall. "I need the font bigger on the revenue slide. They need to see the win, not the cost." I walked past him to get water. He didn't even register me. I was just a ghost in the machine. "Hey," he snapped, pointing without looking at my face. "You, the girl." I stopped. "Yes, Gail. Make sure the projector remote has fresh batteries. I don't want any tech screw-ups today. If that screen goes black, you're out. Understand?" "I understand," I said. "I checked it myself. It works perfectly." "Good, now move." I went to the conference room, the big one, the one with glass walls overlooking the city. The long oval table in the center gleamed like a mirror. 12 heavy leather chairs were perfectly arranged. I walked to the control terminal in the corner. This was my post. I was the one who clicked the next slide. I controlled what the room saw. I loaded Gail's presentation, Q4 Investor Update Final, v3.pptx. Then I inserted my thumb drive. I didn't replace his file. That would be too obvious. He'd noticed the first slide was off and shut me down. Instead, I opened his deck and went to the most critical section, the part where he explained the expenses. The slide titled Strategic Reinvestment in Market Research. In his version, It had a vague, pretty bar chart showing growth trending up and right. I deleted the chart. I replaced it with a split-screen image I had prepared the night before. On the left, the scanned invoice for $216,000 to CMR Solutions. On the right, the public deed for the beach house showing a $216,000 down payment signed by Gail. Then I added one more slide, a simple line graph I titled The Delayed Bonus Pool versus the Beach House Down Payment. The two lines overlapped perfectly. I saved the file, ejected my thumb drive. Now the gun was loaded. People began filing in. These weren't the usual managers. These were the heavyweights. Men and women in suits that looked like armor. They carried expensive pens and leather notebooks. They did not smile. They settled into their seats. The air in the room felt thin, recycled, and icy. Gale walked in last. He looked like royalty. His haircut was fresh. His navy blue suit was sharp, perfectly tailored. He shook hands with the board's chairwoman, Eleanor, a terrifying woman known for firing executives halfway through lunch. "Gale," Eleanor said, her tone dry, "we're eager to see these numbers. The reports sent earlier were dense. We want clarity." "Clarity is exactly what I have for you today, Eleanor," Gale replied, smiling. He stepped toward the front of the room. He stopped at the podium. He glanced at me tucked into the corner and gave a quick, dismissive nod. I tapped the key. The title slide appeared. "Welcome, everyone," Gale began. He was good, annoyingly good, smooth, confident. He talked about the tough economic climate. He talked about the grit of the team, the same team he told to be grateful. He spoke about his vision for the future. "We've had a lean quarter," he said, rehearsing the lie he fed us. "We had to make difficult decisions. We delayed staff incentives to prioritize infrastructure, to prioritize expansion. It breaks my heart to ask my team to wait, but a captain does what's best for the ship, not the sailors." I saw Benji passing the glass wall outside. He was hauling a stack of boxes, looking exhausted. Gale didn't even know Benji's name. "Next slide," Gale ordered. I pressed the key. The revenue numbers appeared. Strong, impressive. "As you can see, our top-line revenue is excellent," Gale said, motioning toward the bright rectangle behind him. "But margins are strained. We're fighting a war for talent, a war for market share." He paused deliberately. He looked somber. "That is why," he continued, "we made a bold choice this quarter. We invested heavily in high-level client acquisition. We spent a substantial portion of our liquidity on a research initiative that will unlock the Southern Territories. Costly, yes, but essential." Eleanor leaned in. "This research," she said, "it absorbed the entire bonus pool." "It did," Gale answered, nodding gravely. "And more. But the insights we gained? Game-changing." My heart pounded inside my chest like a frantic bird trapped in a cage. My palms were wet. This was the moment. No turning back. If I did this, I'd be fired, maybe sued, maybe banned from the industry. But then I looked at Gale's shoes, Italian leather, gleaming. I thought about his baby's #3 vanity. I thought about Benji's sad little sandwich. I thought about the 6 words, "Be grateful you have a job." "Show them the projections," Gale said, turning his back to the screen to face the investors. "Next slide." I didn't look at the screen. I watched Eleanor. I pressed the key. The room didn't gasp. It went utterly silent. The kind of silence that comes right before a storm breaks, when the air pressure drops so low your ears pop. Gale didn't notice at first. He was watching the investors, expecting nods, expecting admiration for his fabricated chart. Instead, he saw their expressions shift. Eleanor's eyebrows shot upward, her mouth parted slightly. The man beside her squinted, put on his glasses, then leaned in. Gale kept talking. "This expenditure," he said, motioning vaguely at the screen behind him, "was absolutely vital for expansion. The metrics—" He faltered. He realized no one was looking at him. They were staring past him at the wall. "The metrics," he repeated, a tremor of uncertainty entering his polished voice. If you examine the growth curve, Gail, Eleanor said. Her voice was no longer dry, it was dangerously soft. Yes? Gail smiled weakly. What is this? It's the projection for Q1, Gail answered. He turned to gesture toward the chart. I watched the color slowly drain from his face. It didn't happen instantly, it was gradual, like watching paint fade. A creeping gray awareness. He froze. His hand remained raised, pointing. He wasn't pointing at a growth curve. He was pointing at his own signature on a mortgage deed. On the left side of the screen, the invoice to CMR Solutions for $216,000 was magnified large enough for everyone to read the fine print. On the right side, the deed for the house on Ocean Boulevard, highlighted in bright yellow by me, showed the matching amount, $216,000. Gail stuttered. He blinked. He stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. This is the wrong slide. Is it? Eleanor asked. She rose to her feet. She wasn't tall, but right then, she looked 10 feet tall. Because the dates align perfectly, Gail. October 14th for the withdrawal, October 15th for the purchase. This is a glitch, Gail stammered. He was sweating now. I could see the shine forming across his forehead. The file must be damaged. Tech support. Where is tech support? Tech support! He shot a wild glare at me. His eyes were wide, panicked. Fix it, he hissed. Shut it down. I didn't budge. I stayed at my station, my hands resting in my lap. The numbers aren't corrupted, Gail, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It wasn't the voice of the quiet data analyst. It was the voice of someone finished. What? He barked. The files you're seeing are the raw expense reports matched with public real estate records, I said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. The research budget didn't go to client acquisition, it went to a title company in Sarasota. Gail stepped toward me. You little... Sit down, Gail, Eleanor ordered. He froze. He glanced toward the door as if weighing escape. I didn't stop there, I said. I tapped the next key. The slide shifted. Now it displayed the chart, the delayed employee bonus pool versus the urgent marble kitchen renovation. I had matched his supposed office repair invoices, $14,000, with the photo from his public Instagram showing his new marble countertops. The timestamps were identical. He billed the company for office repairs, I told the room. But no repairs have been made. The third-floor bathroom has been leaking for 6 months. Meanwhile, Gail's kitchen in his new beach house got an extremely pricey upgrade last week. The room exploded. This is ridiculous, Gail shouted, scrambling to regain control. She's a bitter employee. She's inventing this. These are deepfakes. I emailed the full packet to the board 5 minutes ago, I replied calmly. It includes the bank transfer IDs, the vendor verification logs, and the metadata from your uploads. Everything is there. Eleanor checked her tablet. She scrolled for several seconds. The room fell silent again, except for Gail's harsh breathing. She glanced up at him and removed her glasses. Security, she said. Not yelling, but projecting toward the hallway. 2 uniformed guards were already waiting by the door. I had warned them there might be an incident. They stepped inside. Escort him out, Eleanor said. She didn't even look at Gail anymore. She looked at the screen. She looked at the evidence of his greed. You can't do this, Gail screamed. His polished facade was shattered. He looked ugly, red-faced, frantic. I built this company. I earned that money. They're nothing. They're just gears. He jabbed a finger at me. You're fired. You hear me? You're done. Actually, Eleanor said, you are. The guards took hold of Gail's arms. He tried to wrench free, but they held firm. They led him out of the conference room. He didn't get to pack a box. He didn't get to give a speech. Security walked him past our desks, past the 27 people he'd told to be grateful. I watched through the glass wall. I saw Benji rise to his feet. I saw the others stand, They watched him being dragged away. Gale stared at the floor the whole time. He couldn't face them. I sat alone in the corner of the conference room. The investors murmured among themselves. Urgent whispers, frantic calls. Eleanor turned toward me. She looked exhausted. She studied me for a long moment. "What is your name?" she asked. "Rennie," I said. "Well, Rennie," she answered, "you've created quite a mess today." I swallowed hard. I was prepared. I knew my job was over. You don't humiliate the CEO and keep your badge. Even when you're right, it breaks the hierarchy. "I know," I said. "I'll pack my things." "Wait," she said. She walked over to the control terminal. She stared at the split-screen image of the house one more time. "You found this buried in the operational logs?" she asked. "Yes." "And you linked it to the public records yourself?" "Yes." "How long did it take you?" 3 weeks of nights. She nodded. A small, almost invisible smile crossed her face. "We pay auditors a fortune to find things like this," she said, "and they missed it. You didn't." She reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook. She scribbled something. "Go back to your desk, Rennie. Don't pack anything yet. We have a lot to talk about." I walked back to my desk. The carpet felt softer beneath my shoes. The hum of the air conditioning didn't sound like machinery anymore. It sounded like breath coming back into a body that had been holding it far too long. The office was strangely silent, but not the threatening kind of silence. It was the kind where everyone is waiting for the signal that it's safe to move again. Benji was standing at his desk. He was holding a stapler, but he wasn't using it. He was just gripping it, his knuckles pale. "Rennie," he whispered, "I saw security." I sat down in my chair. I straightened my monitor. I placed my hand on my mouse. "He's gone," I said. "Gone for the day? Gone for good?" The stapler slipped from his hand and hit the laminate desk with a sharp clack. "What did you do?" "I just showed them the receipts," I said. "I showed them the price of the view." For the next 6 hours, no one really worked. We pretended to. We shuffled windows across our screens. We sent emails with short, clipped replies. But the truth was, we were all watching the corner office. The blinds were shut. We could see shadows pacing inside. The board, Eleanor, they were in there dissecting what was left of Gale's empire. At 4 p.m., an email hit the entire company. Subject: Leadership update from the Board of Directors. Effective immediately, Gale, redacted, has been removed from his position as CEO. Eleanor Vance will step in as interim CEO. We ask for your patience as we complete a thorough internal review. Business operations will continue as normal. "Business as normal," Benji muttered. He slumped back into his chair. "That means they're keeping the money, Rennie. Internal review is corporate code for we're going to keep every penny to patch the hole." A cold spike drove through my gut. Benji was usually right. The investors were furious about the fraud, yes, but they were also greedy. They had just watched $250,000 vanish. They weren't going to hand it back to us out of kindness. "Not if I can help it," I said. The next morning, the suits arrived. Not investors this time. These were forensic accountants, auditors. They wore steel gray suits and carried briefcases that looked like they held bomb defusal equipment. They marched into the conference room, the same room where I had ended Gale's career less than a day earlier, and constructed a war room. At 10 a.m., my desk phone rang. "Rennie, this is Eleanor. Please come to the conference room." I stood. Benji caught my wrist. "Be careful," he warned. "They might want a scapegoat. You accessed those files without clearance." "I know," I said. I walked into the conference room. The table was buried in paper. The screen where I had once projected the deed now displayed a sprawling flowchart of bank accounts. Eleanor sat at the head of the table. She looked drained. Her glasses hung from a chain on her neck. "This is Rennie," Eleanor announced to the room of gray suits. She's the one who found the leak. The lead auditor, a man with a bristle brush mustache, peered at me over his spectacles. You have a distinctive way of arranging data, he said. I look for the story, I replied. Well, Eleanor said, the story isn't finished. We have a problem. She slid a sheet of paper toward me. We fired Gale, she said. But the money is gone. He funneled it into that Blue Horizon Trust to purchase the house. The trust is a separate entity. Our lawyers say it could take years to sue the trust and recover the funds. By then, legal fees will swallow everything. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability in her expression. The investors are panicking, Rennie. They want to cut costs to cover the loss. They're discussing layoffs. They're considering cutting the team by 50%. My heart seized. I had gotten Gale fired, but in doing so, I might have just doomed half my friends. If the money was locked inside a legal vault, the company was still bankrupt. Gale still won. He'd lose his job, sure, but he'd keep the house, and we'd lose our livelihoods. There has to be a way, I said. A trust is only protected if it's completely separate from the individual. If he blended his personal life with the trust, we can pierce the veil. We can seize the assets immediately. We've checked, the auditor said, tapping his pen. The documents are clean. He was careful. He wasn't careful, I said. He was arrogant. There's a distinction. I stared at the flowchart glowing on the screen. Let me take over, I said. Give me access to everything, not just the expense files. Give me his company email archives. Give me the metadata from his phone syncs. Give me the server logs. Eleanor glanced toward the auditor. The auditor lifted a shoulder. We bill $400 an hour, ma'am. If she wants to slog through the grunt work for free, let her. Eleanor turned back to me. You get 24 hours, Rennie. After that, I have to submit the budget cuts to the board. 24 hours to save 27 jobs. I didn't go home that night. I stayed in the conference room surrounded by the gray suits who eventually packed up and headed to their hotels at 6 p.m. They left me alone with the glowing monitors. I combed through everything. I read thousands of emails. Most were dull. Approvals for marketing drafts, complaints about the coffee machine. I was hunting for a crack in the armor. I needed a single moment where Gale had used the Blue Horizon Trust for something personal that wasn't the house. Something tiny, something foolish. If I could prove he treated the trust like his private wallet, the lawyers could dissolve it and seize the house immediately. It was 3 a.m. when I uncovered it. It wasn't in a spreadsheet. It was in a deleted items folder in his email. Gale had forwarded an email from his wife to his work address. The subject line read, "Puppy training." They had purchased a purebred golden retriever. I opened the attachment. It was an invoice from a high-end breeder in Kentucky. The price was $4,500. I checked the payment method. It wasn't a credit card. It was a direct wire transfer. The sender's account number ended in 8892. I frantically switched windows to the auditor's list of accounts. I scanned the column for 8,892. There it was. Account 8,892, Blue Horizon Trust Operating Fund. I let out a laugh. It was a dry, cracked sound in the empty room. He had used the shell company, the company built to hide his stolen millions, to buy a dog because he was arrogant, because he believed the money belonged to him, because he couldn't be bothered to change accounts. I printed the email. I printed the invoice. I printed the bank log. I stapled them together. I rested my head on the cool mahogany table and drifted off. I woke to the scent of coffee. Eleanor was standing above me. It was 7 a.m. She placed a cup from the break room beside my hand. You're drooling on the quarterly projections, she murmured gently. I sat up, wiping my mouth. I grabbed the stapled packet. I got him, I said. I slid the pages to her. She read them, then read them again. A slow grin crawled across her face. It wasn't a kind smile. It was a predator's smile. He used the corporate trust to buy a pet, she whispered. That idiot. Pierce the veil, I said. The trust isn't a separate entity. It's his piggy bank. The assets aren't protected. No, she said. They certainly are not. She pulled out her phone. She didn't call the auditors. She called the company's chief legal counsel. Harold, it's Eleanor. Get up. We have him. Prepare the seizure order. We're taking the house. The following 2 weeks were a blur, but the good kind. The news broke on a Tuesday. The company attorneys had filed an emergency injunction. Because of the evidence I uncovered, the dog invoice, the judge ruled that Gail's assets were fair game. The research funds were clawed back. The beach house was seized by the company as collateral to repay the stolen millions. Gail tried to fight it. We heard whispers that he was calling board members, crying, threatening, begging. He claimed it was an accident. He claimed the dog was for office security. No one believed him. The for sale sign went up on the house on Ocean Boulevard 3 days later, but the atmosphere in the office was still heavy. We knew the money was returning to the company, but we didn't know if it was coming to us. The internal review wasn't over yet. Benji was losing hope. They're going to keep it, Rennie. He said it every day at lunch. They're going to claim they need it to stabilize the stock price. I didn't reply. I just kept doing my work, kept analyzing the data. 2 days later, Eleanor's assistant came to my desk. She wants to see you. The office went silent. Everyone watched me stand. They knew I had been working with the auditors. They knew I was the one who pulled the trigger, but they didn't know yet if I was the hero or the villain. I walked into the CEO's office. Eleanor was sitting behind Gail's old desk. She had cleared all his trinkets. The desk was spotless. Sit down, Rennie. I sat. She looked tired but kind. She didn't waste time. We can't keep you in your current role, she said. My stomach dropped. I had expected this. I had disrupted the order. I knew too much. It would be complicated, she continued. Given the breach of protocol, you hacked company files, accessed private data. It's technically fireable. I nodded, holding back tears. I understand. I'll pack my things. However, she said, raising her voice slightly. I stopped. We need someone who understands our financial leaks better than our auditors. Someone who can spot a lie in a spreadsheet from a mile away. She picked up a folder. We're creating a new position. Internal Compliance Director. You report directly to the board. No middle management. Your job is to make sure nobody, not even the CEO, ever lies to us again. She slid the folder across the desk. Inside was a contract. The salary was double what I was making. And this, she said, sliding a thick white envelope across the polished wood, is for the team. I looked at it. What is it? Open it. I did. Inside was a stack of checks. The house went into escrow yesterday, Eleanor said. A cash buyer. We recovered the full amount plus damages. I pulled out the first check, made out to Benji. The amount wasn't $8,000, it was $12,000. We added interest, she said, her eyes twinkling, and a hardship bonus for the delay. You can distribute them. I walked out of that office feeling like I was floating. I didn't walk. I glided. Straight to the bullpen. I stood in the center. 27 faces turned toward me. They looked scared, thinking security was walking me out. I held up the envelope. He told us to be grateful, I said, loud this time. He told us to be grateful we had jobs. I ripped the envelope open. Well, I said, handing the first check to Benji. I think we should be grateful. Grateful that he bought that house so we could sell it. Benji looked at the check, looked at the number, and sank into his chair, hands over his face. His shoulders shook. I handed out every single check, shouting, hugging, tears. One marketing guy even jumped on his desk. Chaos. Beautiful chaos. That night, I stayed late one last time, not to work, but to clean my old desk before moving to my new office. I walked to the window, gazed at the city lights, and thought about the 6 words that started it all. Be grateful you have a job. I took out my phone. A Zillow alert popped up, set weeks ago during the hunt. Price drop, 441 Ocean Boulevard, Sarasota. Status sold. I tapped it. The listing updated. Photos of the house, the white walls, the sand view, the kitchen, the Italian marble countertops he had bragged about, more expensive than my car. I zoomed in. Beautiful. And now they paid for Benji's daughter's braces, my student loans, the honeymoon our receptionist had canceled. Gail wanted a legacy, a monument to his success. He got one. We were his legacy. Every bill we paid, every breath of fresh air, every smile at work, we were spending his money. I swiped the notification away, put my phone in my pocket, grabbed my bag, and turned off the light. "Thank you, Gail," I whispered into the dark room. Then I walked out, never looking back. Thank you so much for listening. It's crazy how 6 little words can change everything, right? If you enjoyed seeing the bad guy get what he deserved, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, what's the worst thing a boss has ever said to you? I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. See you next time.